All right, welcome back to Modern F&M at Top Deck Productions here in Mason, Ohio, GameSwap. We have round 2, looking like Connor Sloan on Mono Green Tron against Devin Dunn, who is playing Mardu Pyromancer. Connor wasn't happy with his opening hand, so looks like he's going to 6.
Very exciting matchup here. You know, another modern staple, the kind of 2 decks going head-to-head. Very excited to see how this plays out. Connor's been on this Mono Green Tron list for quite a while. And then I know Devin is kind of newer to the shop, but he's a very good player, and he enjoys Mardu Pyromancer, so we should see some good magic here. Ooh.
That
doesn't look quite like Mardu Pyromancer.
Not a Mardu Pyromancer deck.
Is this some Ponza again for round number 2?
No, it looks like it's a Devoted Druid combo. I see a Vizier of Remedies in his hand, so he's probably on green-white or Abzang combo. And yeah, Connor's been on Tron for a long time, and he did bounce around a little bit, and I think he played some Eldrazi Tron for a while, but he does like the big mana decks. He does like his Tron lands. Oh, Devin with one of the best starts you can have in this. It looks like it's Bant company, so has the combo in it, multiple combos possibly. Night of the Reliquary, Retreat to Coralheim possibly. We don't even know. There was a Bant company list that I want to say top 8'd recently.
Yeah, definitely.
It was GP Vegas. I don't think it was.
I can remember the exact tournament, but those lists always kind of pop up here and there. Definitely something that you have to continually be worried about, especially with the added bonus of this Devoted Druid kind of being put into the deck, reminiscent of kind of like a pod deck where you just have a bunch of combos or a bunch of ways to generate value. And then you kind of go head-to-head and hope one of them comes together.
Right. So these decks generally have the option of being just a beatdown deck or being a combo deck. So if you can't beat their creatures, they'll beat you that way. And if you can't answer their creatures, they'll beat you with the combo. So it looks like Devin is holding on to Spell Queller, at least, in his hand. I'm not sure what else. So these lists vary a pretty considerable amount. They're pretty toolboxy. They usually run 4 companies, 4 Quarter Callings. They almost always run Night of the Reliquary if they're capable. And then this combo runs Devoted Druid Vizier of Remedies so that they can make infinite mana. They do have to say how much mana, but it is as much as they'd like.
An arbitrarily large amount of mana.
Correct. So it looks like he's got an Eternal Witness, a Spell Queller, and something in between it. So he'll likely get the Ewit and something else and buy back that company. Because it will resolve with the trigger.
Is he going to be able to combo next turn?
He could have comboed on untap if Connor hadn't answered that bird, I believe. But he might be able to answer it.
Is he short the white mana?
Yes. He was short the white mana, but now he has a Windswept Heath in his hand. So I believe he can just go Heath, get a Vizier, make infinite mana, activate the Dustwatch Recruiter as many times as you want, shows Connor a Walking Ballista and says, good game, next one. He could do all this, but I think he's actually going to correctly go through all the motions just so that we can see it. He may not individually activate the Dustwatch Recruiter or only do it so long as he has to show Connor his win con.
So you can see demonstrating the loop there, activating the werewolf, kind of going through the deck to find that Walking Ballista. Devin just picking up his deck here. Yeah.
There you go, Walking Ballista, and Connor says, all right, I know how this works.
Oof. So that was quite the collected company.
Yeah. If he had white mana, he didn't even need that collected company. He just needed that Devoted, or the Dustwatch Recruiter.
Right.
So, for those who wanted to see it happen, it takes quite a while of looking at the top 3 for X number of times until you come up with usually one Walking Ballista.
Right.
Occasionally they will play something else like a one of a Ronus the Indomitable.
Okay.
Not a standard all-star, but you know, does see his his time in standard in those mono
A standard cute star, kind of like one of those fun ofs you throw in your green deck.
Yeah, you'll see one or two every once in a while in like a standard constructed deck, and you'll see one in the main or sideboard of a lot of these company decks, because what do you do with all that infinite mana if they somehow manage to exile or mill over your Walking Ballista or something? You do need an alternate win con, and there is nothing else you can pump mana into in the deck other than that Walking Ballista and sometimes a Ronus or something else cute.
Mm-hmm.
I personally played Abzan Company after the after the Birthing Pod ban with Malira, and then when Vizier was spoiled and Devoted Druid came about into
came about and up to $15 at least a piece.
Yeah, well, I believe it's a Shadowmoor card.
A Shadowmoor common.
Yeah, Shadowmoor common that was like 10 cents or something, and then it shot up to 6, shot up to 12, and I think the last time I saw it, it was $12 for a common, a little bit similar to Street Wraith, which hit around that price for a common as well, that was not played until Death Shadow came to be. But I played the pod version, then I played the Malira version post-pod banning, then I played the Vizier Devoted Druid version. Really enjoyable decks. Love toolbox decks. You have a lot to do post-board for a lot of really good hate cards. So you've got access to like Kitaki in post-board matchups for Affinity and Lantern and KCI, things like that. That
I've seen some of these lists even be able to run Kitaki in the main, just so that they can cord for it if they need it up against kind of an artifact-heavy opponent, especially when some of the Eldrazi Tron, what was it? The Eggs deck is also another one where there's just a whole bunch of artifacts in the meta. You can even just have it right off the bat, and it doesn't cost you a whole lot to include it.
Here we see Connor do the same play he did last game, which was Ballista on one, shoot your bird. It's always bolt the bird. It's very important. Bolt the bird is a real thing.
Walking Ballista doing an excellent impersonation of a removal spell here.
Yes. I can't quite tell what that card is in Devin's hand on the far right. Is that a different art, Wall of Roots? It looks like it might be a Wall of Roots, but I'm not familiar with that art.
I believe that was the Eternal Masters art.
Oh, there you go.
Wall of Roots. Then an Ugin there.
So how does Mono Green Tron? Oh, that is the special pack Ugin.
Yes, the special pack Ugin. For those that weren't at Fate Reforged pre-release,
yes,
they handed out special packs to players that did attend. Was it only the midnight, or was it everyone?
I think they may have been in the kits. Were they in the kits?
No, I believe the shop just handed them out.
Yeah, it was the midnight release. I'm not sure if it was any other release, but Fate Reforged, the shop owners got a certain number of these special packs that had a couple cards, or I don't remember how many cards, 1 to 3 or something, and they had a chance to have alternate art Ugin and a couple other less impressive.
A common, uncommon, and then the chance at a rare and an additional uncommon.
Yeah, there were a considerable number of alternate art cards. I believe they were all foil alternate arts. But the only one that actually...
Or they were non-foil. That is the one caveat that people have to that version of Ugin, is that it doesn't come in foil.
Oh, well then I stand corrected. They were all non-foils, but they were all alternate arts. And I don't think any of them actually are playable in Eternal formats other than
the Ugin, right? So one of them, I believe, was Altar of the Brood, which is something that sees play primarily in EDH as a combo finisher. However, we did see it in kind of a KCI Eggs style deck as an alternate win con, just putting artifacts in play and making your opponent mill.
Right, and it did matter because the mill actually milled all of the opponent's specific land. Were they playing against Valakut or something? I believe it was something like that. It was last weekend, and they milled over a certain number of important lands. that the player was unable to get back and unable to combo because of it, I believe. So it was actually that
the incidental mill came out.
Yeah, that Altar of Brood was actually very critical in that matchup.
There's the alternate art up there. You can see, I believe that's Ugin, kind of weaving some colorless magic there.
So it looks like Devin has a Devoted Druid and a Wall of Roots. Access to 4 mana, facing down a Masterpiece. Unknown to me.
Is it in a
I'd like to say it's an Oblivion Stone, but it is an Oblivion Stone.
Oblivion Stone, okay.
So Connor does have the answer were Devin to try to say end step company.
He does also,
which he can do.
Connor's choice in these Black Border Tron lands here, some of them signed, also very quite fancy. So definitely a lot of love gone into this deck.
Yeah, all the original Antiquities, they all do look signed. However, let's see. I guess all of the towers. I actually am not an art aficionado for Magic. I do know my favorites, but all of the towers, I guess, were done by the same player. I would guess that all the plants, even though they have different arts as well, were done by the same person, but not the same person as the tower or say the mine. And Connor is choosing likely to play one of each of the different art styles. So you can see he has 2 towers in play and 2 different arts of the towers in play.
So he has 2 towers, a mine, and a power stone, it looks like.
So he has a mine at the far top, a tower,
a ghost quarter,
an
perhaps?
Eye of Ugin?
Not Eye of Ugin. Eye of
Sorry,
Sanctum of Ugin.
Sanctum of Ugin. And a power plant and then a tower. I believe it's a Sanctum of Ugin. I have played Connor on this deck, and it's never fun when he cracks his Sanctum of Ugin and shows you an Ulamog or something similar.
And Devin is really pressed here. With that O-Stone in play and Connor just leaving mana up, it's really difficult to advance his plan just because everything is permanent based. So just trying to figure out how much he can commit to the board, have that be swept away by the O-Stone, and then rebuild from there.
So it looks like he's going for an end step company. And Connor is going to crack the O-Stone in response. I think, I'm not positive, but I think if I was Connor, I would have let the company resolve, then crack the O-Stone still in end step, because these decks can generate infinite mana at instant speed. So would Devin had companied into a Vizier, he could have generated infinite mana, but he would not have been able to do anything with that mana until he untapped. So I think Connor was safe to let it resolve, let him get his hits, then pop the O-Stone, let him untap with an empty board.
He could have also hit the werewolf's escaping me off the top of my head.
Dustwatch Recruiter.
Dustwatch Recruiter. If he hit exactly Dustwatch Recruiter and Vizier, there's a chance that Devin could have generated enough advantage to get the Walking Ballista. Couldn't cast it yet, but just kind of have those extra pieces ready.
Right, so if he picked up redundant pieces of all of his combo and also generated enough card advantage of quality to make it so that Connor couldn't win, sure. But with Connor's hand, and we know he has Ugin, Ugin is a devastating card against this deck.
Absolutely.
So even if Devin had done what we said would have been worst case scenario, untapped and replayed essentially everything for the combo, Connor would have just played Ugin, exiled everything, triggered his Sanctum of Ugin,
just like he's doing right now.
Gone and gotten an Ulamog most likely, and then he had the game pretty locked up. I think that one of the ways he could have possibly lost was cracking that O-Stone before the company had actually resolved, considering the context of his hand. If he didn't have an Ugin and that Sanctum of Ugin, then I think I would have agreed and cracked the Oblivion Stone before the company had resolved. So now most likely we're going to see Connor -2, exile these 2 creatures, pass the turn, and then Devin is in a really tough spot.
He might be comfortable enough to just strike down the Devoted Druid. But nope, he'll go for the full sweep. Devin
Well, you
will
don't
float
want to
some
give
mana.
Devin access to more mana next turn, because him being able to play, say, a 2-drop and then play a land and still be able to company end step after Ugin activates is a difficult line for Connor to deal with if he doesn't happen to untap Ulamog, exile 2 creatures, or exile 2 lands.
Right, being able to cast those instant speed creatures is kind of how he would get Ugin, so to speak, with that Coco.
Right, and potentially win, because if he can... The problem is, if he doesn't get exactly Ronus if he's running that, or Walking Ballista, which we know he's running, then Connor doesn't care how much life he gains. So if he does like the Finks combo where he generates infinite life, which I don't think you can do without the Viscerous here. So you don't usually see that in the Bant versions, only in the Abzan versions. The thing about Tron is you can gain as much life as you want against them, and then they just Ulamog away what you have and then mill you out. So they don't care if your life total 7,000. They'll just make it so you have
Doesn't even need Alternative Brood to mill you out. Just uses the good old-fashioned Ulamog.
Right. Well, it looks like Connor chose to play a Walking Ballista on 2 this turn. And I believe he just bolted Devin at end step, or on his turn. End step company from Devin.
I really like this Walking Ballista on 2, being able to pick off some of these smaller creatures that Devin has, really prevent the combo, even at instant speed here.
Right, which is one of the things we were talking about. If Devin goes end step company.
And he does just that, shoots the bird down. And he also has enough mana to add a counter onto Walking Ballista, so if he needs to ping something else down, he'll have that double protection.
I'm surprised he didn't do that still in end step to kill that Devoted Druid, because that
the Druid is definitely scarier than the bird.
Yeah, it is a key piece for him to generate infinite mana. Devin plays the Hinterland Harbor, has access to 7 mana this turn if he wants, of various Bant combinations. Has a Vizier, a Knight of the Reliquary, a Spell Queller, and not sure his last card. Looks like it might be 2 Knights? 2 Knights of the Reliquary, possibly. Trying to figure out if he can win this game and how much he needs to contribute to the board so that Connor feels it necessary to minus Ugin next turn.
Keeping Ugin off of ultimating here is good, but I really don't know how far that will get you, given that Connor already has Tron with an additional land and an Ulamog in hand.
I think if I was Devin, I would probably play a Knight of the Reliquary to either make him cast the Ulamog answering it.
It looks like he's responding to the Ugin activation targeting a Devoted Druid.
He's trying to think if he wants to add mana or not.
Uncertain if he did, but we'll see if he has any responses.
If he did, it would just be to bluff because he doesn't actually have anything to do. I think this is the turn where Connor's going to go for that Ulamog, which should essentially wrap this up.
Boom. Targeting. Got some pretty looking lands down there for Devin. In response, Spell Queller. Some confusion about Spell Queller on the field there, trying to get it, capture that Ulamog, but a little too big for that Spell Queller's Lantern there to capture. Only 4 CMC or less. And that'll do it for game 2. Mono Green Tron really showing its chops there, being able to compete with this combo deck that really... Do we see a turn 4 win from Devin in game 1?
Yeah, I think we did. You can see... I don't remember if you can get a turn 2 win, but turn 3 is definitely not uncommon, especially if your Hierarch or Birds of Paradise is not answered on turn 1. Connor had a number of ways to win that game, so it was really just his game to lose.
Right. Wealth of riches.
After the O-Stone, and especially once the Ugin was down, he would have had to do a number of things wrong to not win that game, but he definitely played it well because he was prepared for Devin's end step companies possibly allowing him to combo. So being conservative and playing around that was good of Connor.
As a sidebar, I do find it interesting that both players have chosen nearly the same color sleeve. I can't tell if they're exactly the same.
I think Connor's they're a bit more gray.
I think slightly, like they're like a stone.
Yeah. Like an Oblivion stone.
Yeah, like Oblivion stone. Okay. Matches his deck well.
Goes with all those Tron lands. All those colorless cards that he loves to play.
All of the colorless cards. You know what doesn't go with, though, is Devin in that opening 7. So he's going to mulligan down to 6.
Thankfully for Devin, he is on the play this game, and the deck mulligans fairly well.
Quite well, yeah, definitely.
Just needs a couple pieces, and for Connor to not have interaction on turn 2. That Walking Ballista on 2, both games so far, he still won through it in game 1 when he was on the play. But game 2, it was too much of a stall for him. Spell Queller, some lands. It looks like he's a little land heavy. Could be.
Is that a stomping ground in there?
4. It is a stomping ground.
Have we seen red from him yet?
These decks are very toolboxy, like I said.
True.
And if they run Night of the Reliquary, they run it for a Kessig Wolf run.
Okay.
So they can. That's the other version of if they don't play that, they play a Ronus, so they can dump all their mana in that way. So, Kessig Wolf run, sacking a land with your Night of the Reliquary to get it, and then untapping and winning if they don't have a Ghost Quarter or an answer for your Night of the Reliquary is a fairly common line.
Our stream runner is reminding me that Kessig Wolf Run is in fact the best card ever.
I'm not sure I agree, though.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree either, but it is quite a good card. Yeah, it turns any creature into a threat. So,
right, we saw Matt Mini earlier on camera swing in for 5 with that Arbor Elf.
That Arbor Elf.
And then it immediately got Ghost Quartered. Looks like Devin has a turn 2 Devoted Druid. He's holding at least a Spell Queller in his hand. I'm not sure what else. That Spell Queller could be reasonably good this game.
There's that Ugin.
Oh, Connor, do that again. Cracked his star to add a green to draw his card, which was Ugin, and then Ancient Stirring is getting a mine. He has a Power Plant out already and another Power Plant in hand. Not sure if he has the turn 3 Tron or not. Looks like he has a Relic of Progenitus in his hand, along with the Lava Column Power Plant.
Yes, the Lava Column Power Plant.
My favorite Power Plant.
I agree. I think that one's my favorite Power Plant as well.
I love these Antiquities Tron lands.
I think that's my favorite tower. I don't know. I think I'm partial to the red, kind of from that era.
I also like that tower a lot. I definitely don't like the coastal tower looking one. I can't actually picture the third art in my head right now, but I'm pretty sure.
Is it the very faded one? It's kind of from left perspective on there.
I'm not sure. Maybe Connor will draw it and we'll get to see it. Or maybe our stream runner can pull it up.
Is that another Walking Ballista used for a removal spell?
It is the Mountainous. Oh, are there 4 versions?
There are 4
versions. So there's a Mountainous version, a coastal version. Okay, stream runner, we know there are more than 4 versions. We meant original
from Antiquities.
From Antiquities, and also reprinted in Chronicles. They reprinted I believe all of the arts, but I thought there were only 3. So I'm learning so much today.
All right, and he's got a Relic out as well. So both of those cards are kind of looming over Devin here, pressuring his resources. But Devin fires off that company.
Thankfully, Relic isn't too impactful in this matchup. Devin's only graveyard interaction is Eternal Witness, I believe. Looks like he hit a Knight of the Reliquary and a Spell Queller off of that company end of turn. So if he can play a Vizier this turn, he can generate infinite mana, but he won't have anything to do with it unless he has a Dustwatcher critter. Looks like he might have that Wall of Roots again in his hand. What is that green card in the front of his hand?
He's flicking his cards a little bit too fast. We'll see if he can bait Devin out into attacking with his Knight. and then cracking the relic, get rid of the lands in the graveyards, and knock him out. Can't do it this turn, of course, because Walking Ballista only has 1 damage, or 1 counter on him.
Looks like he's just attacking. Before damage, he cracked his Heath so that he can make the knight a 5/5. If he... We're just getting a life total correction while he's tutoring through his deck. I was thinking there would be a chance that Devin would activate the Knight of the Reliquary to get Kessig Wolfrun this turn and play a Stomping Ground or fetch a Stomping Ground and then be able to activate the Kessig Wolfrun and play Vizier in the same turn. So he could have, with 2 different cards, have 1 on the spot right there. So Connor would not have been able to interact with any of it, I believe, because Devoted Druids is 0/2, and I think Vizier of Remedies is a 1/2, if I remember correctly. But he didn't have the red.
Could he have shot the Devoted Druid while it had a counter?
It never gets a counter if the Vizier is in play, because you
True,
can't
if the
put the
Vizier's
counter
in
on
play.
there. And that was part of the criteria for him winning this turn, is if he went Vizier, fetch a red source, tutor with Knight to get a Kessig Wolfrun, have 2 mana and infinite mana to activate the X on the Spell Queller.
There you go, on the Spell Queller, and be able to hit
swung for as much as he wanted. But he didn't have the Vizier.
Or the Devoted Druid, I suppose.
He did have the red. He did have a Stomping Ground in his hand, so he wouldn't even have needed to fetch for it.
Right.
But he needs to get the Vizier, or maybe a Dustwatch Recruiter, or a Company. That's what he's looking for in the next turn or 2 here. He has to be worried because Connor has Tron. So unless Connor just doesn't have any big threats in his hand, which does happen sometimes for Tron.
Another Tron piece. I think, did we see an Ugin earlier in this hand?
We did. He drew it off of the Chromatic Star. I don't know where it is. It's got to be in his hand. I think he's trying to figure out if he wants to cast it now or not. I would imagine he does. And then -3 to clear the board. The only problem with that is if you play Ugin -3 and then he floats a mana, and then after the Ugin resolves any companies, then he could be in a spot where he could lose. So
yeah, with his defenses down and only be able to do 1 damage with the Walking Ballista.
But I think it's likely his best play. It looks like Devin did not float a mana, and so likely does not have a company.
Ooh.
That was a good play.
That was what we call a cheeky play. Getting in the Spell Queller with nothing to counter, but just to take care of that 1/1. Really putting Connor with shields down this turn. See if Devin can capitalize on his kind of freedom here.
Looks like he drew a Crisali Pride Mage for the turn, which means he can move that Ugin down to 1 if he wanted to cast it.
But putting it to 2 is also quite powerful here. Not being able to neg 3.
The problem with putting it to 2 and not committing more to the board, he already knows you don't have company. So unless you drew it, he's just going to untap and bolt your Queller. So now you don't have anything to threaten the Ugin with. Whereas if you played the Crisali Pride Mage, attacked for 3, put the Ugin to 1, when he plus the Ugin, it would have only went to 3. And it only would have been able to kill 1 of the 2 threats. And then either the Crisali Pride Mage would have been able to kill it with the Exalted trigger, or it would have left you with the Queller, or you could have made the same play, putting it down to 1, possibly drawing a Pride Mage or a Hierarch or something to finish off that Ugin. But right now,
yeah, I was assuming he had a different follow-up, was kind of between that Pride Mage and something else, but I guess he just had that land in hand, so it is surprising that he didn't play that out. So now the Ugin will one at a time pick off his top decks until kind of ticks up for ultimate, and then O-Stone is even backup insurance.
I imagine Connor's not going to even care about the Crisali Pride Mage, because if he goes for the play of Bolt your Pride Mage, he's just going to sack it and destroy the O-Stone.
All right, there we go.
To the Crisali Pride Mage targeting the Oblivion Stone, Connor put a Fate counter on it. So any future Oblivion Stone, he will be able to keep his Ugin around. Now, if I were Devin, I would not have pulled the trigger on that Crisali Pride Mage that fast. I would have made Connor react to it or just ignore it for a while, and then you will keep the Ugin a little bit under control, possibly, or make him use a plus on it instead of you, and then sack it to kill the O-Stone that way.
Right, right.
Same result, just ends up being 3 life cost, I believe. Looks like a second
backup O-Stone. What does he have for a follow-up here?
Ballista on 2. And he has 5 mana left, so he can either crack the O-Stone or activate the Walking Ballista if he chooses to, end of turn.
Yep, really settling in the driver's seat here.
Yeah, very much in control of this game. I don't think there's much Devin can hope to draw to get him out of this. He may have just picked up an Eternal Witness, which would have been all right if the Relic hadn't gotten cracked and gotten rid of most of his graveyard.
Right.
I'm not sure if there was actually anything good in there other than a couple fetches.
We did see a company earlier, I believe.
I'm not sure if he fetched or if he accompanied this game. Oh, you're right, he did.
For the Knight and the Spell Queller. Right.
That's right. So it should be a Devoted Druid, a Knight, and a Spell Queller in exile with a couple of Windswept Teeth, I believe.
So Connor opted not to crack or not to power up his Walking Ballista for fear of a collected company. Instead, just going to go ahead and find another land, get even more mana.
He's already so far ahead that he doesn't need to risk putting his shields down for anything. Though, adding a counter to the Ballista, even if there was a company in response, he's going to his untapped step, so that's really not going to make much of a difference from Devin's perspective. Still, didn't want to give him the opportunity.
Yep.
Sylvan Scrying got himself a Field of Ruin, which is pretty good if he ends up trying to get a Kessig Wolf run and
absolutely
mana.
He sees that Scalding Tarn there, or Scalding Tarn, Stomping Ground, ready for that red mana. So all he needs to do is draw the Kessig.
Looks like Connor's going for the red source. He did have the option of locking Devin off of blue as well. These decks generally do not play a basic island, but the lists are not always the same, like we discussed pretty early in this round. So he could possibly have an island.
It would take him off Spell Queller, but we have not seen the Knight combo from him. So it wouldn't necessarily cut him off anything too essential to kind of a victory here, something that Devil can cobble together. The
Retreat to Coralheim combo is most devastating against other creature decks, so even if he did have it in game 1, I think he may have wanted to take it out game 2, unless he was trying to get the scry value from all the fetching and the Knight activations.
See if Devin's trying to set up for a big turn here, trying to overwhelm Connor, but with that O-Stone, I'm not sure there's too much Devin can do.
If Devin commits to the board, he either gets Oblivion Stoned or Ugin Minused.
There's the Coral Helm. All right. He did have another blue source. I think he would have had the blue source regardless.
Played a land, went for the scry instead of tapping the Walking Ballista. Pretty good.
Yep.
Keep those creatures and enchantments separated. An Avacyn's Pilgrim, not something you see frequently in these decks. I think that may be a cost-efficient version of Noble Hierarch.
Quite possibly.
I was known to play an Elvish Mystic or two in my list because I couldn't afford 4 Hierarchs. I think they are somewhere around $80 right now. Our stream runner believes that Avacyn's Pilgrim is better than Noble Hierarch because it has 1 attack. I would heavily disagree.
I'm also going to disagree. There is some logic. Good players play Goblin Welder. Great players remember to attack with their Goblin Welder. 1 damage really is a kind of make or break the match, and especially if you're trying to Kessig combo, it doesn't matter what the starting power is.
Right. In a combo deck, that power is pretty